Welcome to The Growth Project, a podcast brought to you by AMPLOS. We are in the studio today as we are closing out the year. Dr. Milt Lowder, Dr. Drew Brannon, happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Another year in the books.
Closing it out.
Another year in the books. Big opportunity for the Georgia Bulldogs coming up. I hope you're ready for that tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. It will be. Yeah. At the time this podcast is coming out, it will be tomorrow night. So, yeah, looking forward to that as well. Hopefully that will go great.
Yes.
Last time we were in New Orleans, it did not go so great. So hopefully this will be better.
Yeah, New Orleans has not been good to AMPLOS team. So I'm glad you guys, although I wish we were back there this year, but I don't, New Orleans has not been favorable to the AMPLOS team. So
we're going to try to go rewrite the story there.
Good.
That's what we'll try to do. Okay, so this time of year is it's important for a lot of reasons. I feel like it is, really fertile ground for the space that we're in the sense of it's a common time of year where people are doing a healthy assessment, reflection. They're thinking about change, growth, development, routines, and I love all that stuff. And I think we at AMPLOS, we're in the trenches when it comes to helping people get better. Of course we are. I mean, that's the whole AMPLOS stands for, growth. And so we're trying to help people grow and get better. So it's a great time of year for us to be talking about these things.
Yeah, and I think there's no bad time to talk about those, but the calendar reset, America especially has been conditioned of this is when we hit the focus, we hit the reset button. There are a number of challenges with that, and we're going to talk about it on today's podcast. But this is a time of year where people hopefully are taking the time to pause and reflect. And in our first podcast that came out last week, really talking about the power of reflection. I know it kind of hit me in some ways to make me think deeply in reviewing the year and reflecting upon the year. And I know we had a great conversation here. So let's go back there a little bit. What were some of your takeaways and thoughts from that previous conversation?
Yeah, and I think if you haven't yet had a chance to hear last week's episode focused on reflection, be a great thing to go and dive into and get the benefit of that coming into this one. First of all, one of my big takeaways from that conversation was the importance of changing the pace in an effort to do that well, right? I think that's one of the great opportunities that we find this time of year is for most people, you are getting a little change of pace with some time away from work, some time with routines kind of getting disrupted and changed, that type of stuff. So you gotta create an opportunity in the right environment and so on and so forth to get the most out of any type of reflection exercise. So for me, that was a clear takeaway of all right, you gotta put the thoughtfulness toward this. This isn't as simple as oh, hey, I'm gonna give myself an hour during my day and just be in my office. That's probably not the ideal way to do this. Really create a way, an opportunity to get the most out of it.
Yeah, we know that, again, from a position of strength, not shame and guilt or weakness or criticism, we know the brain is more open to suggestions, possibilities to see things in a different way in a new environment. And so as you listen to that podcast, give yourself time. We've provided you a handout to really kind of follow along and answer some of these questions and reflect meaningfully and deeply about your year and how you grew and what inspired you and how did you show up? And to be honest, how are some ways you didn't show up that you aren't proud of?
Yeah.
And I think, Drew, the transition to this week is we talk about it all the time. Awareness without action only increases levels of anxiety and frustration and disappointment. So if you complete week one and look at this reflection and review and think about some insights you learned, but you don't do anything differently for 2026, you don't put that awareness into action, you probably just only increase some pressure and anxiety and disappointment. And so that's the next step is as you raise that sense of awareness of when you're at your best and maybe when you weren't and what inspired you and how did you grow, this week is really about, okay, how do we put that plan into action? How do we take that idea and move that idea into implementation?
Yeah, this is taking the next step.
Yeah.
Hopefully you were able to do the work and raise the awareness like you're talking about, which is where you always have to begin. But here comes the lifting part, right? This is work. And people will sometimes even make that comment of gosh, this just feels like a lot of work. And that is 100% correct. It is a lot of work. We know that. The data says that, supports that. As we get older, we get better and better at being ourselves. And it is challenging to make adjustments, do some things differently, think differently, behave differently. But keep in mind here, we're talking about how it's challenging, not impossible. So you can absolutely do these things, but I think today's conversation is going to be a great, hopefully offer you some visibility into, well, how though? And how do I increase the likelihood that it sticks and that I do make these changes? That's where we're headed today.
Yeah, and so, the term that is, I don't know when it came about, but we talk about these resolutions, New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna make a New Year's resolutions. They're just the word implies it's going to be a challenge, and we'll talk about that. But let's dive into this in America, especially. What are some of the statistics we've learned about people making resolutions and how they stick or don't stick?
They're not promising. They're not pretty. And that's not going to be a shocking new piece of information to any of our listeners. Everybody's, I think, pretty well familiar with the fact that the research has shown us very clearly that although many people start out the year with fantastic intentions of, here are my 37 new goals or new habits that I'm going to adopt for whatever it might be, that doesn't always really go according to plan. So how common is this? And yes, there's different studies you might be citing you're looking at, but one of the ones that we would at least mention today, somewhere around 30 to 40% of U.S. adults report that they made at least one New Year's resolution. So, somewhere between a third and approaching, I guess you could say 40% is approaching half, but somewhere between 30 to 40% of people in the U.S. will do at least one of these.
Yeah, and so to me, that number seems a little bit shocking because we talk so much about New Year's resolutions, everybody making resolutions. But to be honest, it's like everything else in the work that we do. While a lot of people talk about it, very few people do it.
Yeah, right.
Or attempt to do it.
Right. And within that population, we do know that younger adults are the most likely, which that's kind of, with both of us having, teenagers and college students and beyond all that, like that's kind of hilarious to me, if I'm being honest.
Well, what my first thought when I saw that statistic is it's so much, and as we can do as parents and old people, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
true too.
We've trained them to take ownership, write the goals, review, reflect. You got to do this. And then the older you get, the more likely is you're going to stop doing some of these things that really work and help you grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the study that we're looking at here said that people between the ages of 18 to 29, about 50 to 66% of those folks set goals or made a resolution in last year. So again, hey, if my 20-year-old is dialing in on goals, I will love that. I just, to my knowledge, that has not happened yet.
Well, my three, I know two of them will. So that's probably 66% of mine, 67% of mine will, I know for sure. And so what I even like about that language, setting goals versus a resolution, but the other piece is everybody's always asking us and curious, how do I create a competitive advantage? And one of the things we've said over and over again, that quote by George Washington Carver, when I do the common things in uncommon ways, you command the attention of the world. This is such a common thing.
Very common.
And only 70% of the population is not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think this stat is really interesting. So this was a different study that indicated about 70% of adults did not make resolutions. And then when they went a little deeper on that and asked those folks, well, why not? The number one answer was because they didn't like making them. So be the psychologist that you are over there for a second. Why don't they like making them?
Because I think it adds pressure. And to me, again, that word resolution leaves little room for gray. It's so black and white, it's absolute, that a resolution is almost like an expectation. This is what I have to do, and this is what I should do. And that decreases the probability of you doing it. And so a little bit of the rebellious nature, I think, of Americans. Anytime somebody says, here's what you got to do, people are going to do the opposite and avoid that. And so we let our feelings control our thoughts a little bit, and it just doesn't feel good. Or my guess is, there's a lot of reasons here that I've gone down. One is, Drew, I just think we know our limitations as human beings, and the research backs this up, that our willpower is not strong enough to make the right decision, the best decision every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't feel good to kind of set a resolution when your history has suggested, like the longer you live, the less likely you're going to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why young people are more encouraged by it. They're still optimistic enough, delusional enough that they can make the changes. And the bitter old cynic in us says, oh, it's not going to work. There's no need. I've set goals in my life, or I've done resolutions and I've never followed through and it's never worked. And so you create this negative, cynical, bitter, satisfied individual. It's like, I just don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, the younger people haven't banked enough failure reps yet.
Yeah.
So they're still, maybe
this works. This
this
sounds
year's
good.
my year.
Yeah, this sounds good. They're naive.
Yeah, this year's my year. And I think all that's true. And then, they also, naturally, human nature, who wants to sign up for something that historically hasn't gone your way?
Yeah.
And more than likely, it hasn't gone your way.
Yeah, and so we just tend to avoid those things
Right.
that make us uncomfortable.
Right. So when the statement is, I don't like making them, it's important we translate that because there's more than one thing kind of underneath that sentiment.
Well, as we say all the time, your feelings can inform you of what you're thinking about that, not control it. And so if I don't like it, then okay, what am I really thinking about it? What is it saying about me? What's it saying about the process?
All right, so let's get into the segment of the population that is doing this. So for those that are deciding to make a resolution, set a goal, we'll use those terms a little interchangeably. Let's focus on the categories here for a minute. What are the categories that they are prioritizing with these resolutions and goals?
Yeah, and so what you really see is like number one would probably be around health and exercise and fitness is where most people are kind of lying. They haven't achieved their goals. This is when we do the wellness wheel evaluations across the country and talk to people, the one that kind of is often lacking is the physical. Their people are just kind of mindful of not taking care of their bodies, of not finding time to exercise in the busyness of life. And so to me, the resolution is number one is around health and fitness. Then you start thinking about finances and long-term goals where people kind of spend some time and effort and energy. The mental health has become, we're big proponents that people are becoming more mindful and aware of their mental health and what does it mean to kind of really have a sense of well-being and harmony in their life and their relationships, which is interesting that of the top ones the studies indicated, relationships are not on the list.
Yeah, true. Yeah, okay, I'm going to sound like the critic here. It feels like the American way that all the top categories would be focused on myself.
Yeah.
What do you not see here is any categories that are really more about those around you or others.
And that may be a reason that resolutions aren't successful.
Could be.
Because we will do things for other people that we will not do for ourselves. We will sacrifice for others what we will not sacrifice for ourselves. And when you make it about you, which you have to take care of yourself before you take care of others, but you don't invite other people in, and you don't tie it to the common good, you're probably less likely going to achieve that result.
So, and to be clear, we aren't saying that it should only be about others and not about yourself. It's not an either or thing here. And we are absolutely in support of people deciding to create resolutions or goals that are focused on improving your health. Great. Good with all that. But I do think it's noteworthy that on the short list, you don't see anything about anything but
it's about me.
Looking out for numero uno
It's about
here.
me. You say that, Drew. We just had and I want to think about this. We just had the opportunity with one of our clients to go on the cruise ship, the Allura. And what stood out to both of us, the housekeeping team were all basically Asian and all love to serve. And I talked to one of the senior leaders on the executive leadership team who used to be a captain on the ship. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, well, part of the culture of where we find these individuals, they truly believe in giving versus getting, that they are there to serve and make it about others. And they did it with great joy. They did it with a wonderful attitude. And I think what you just said is so telling. In America, we've made it so much about us, this egocentric piece, that we aren't going to grow to our best selves without being in an environment of others and receiving help from others. But we also cannot grow into our best self without serving others.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Good example there. So we want to do both those things. We want to be in all those spaces.
Yes.
And then let's also touch on this, because I think this is important. On the categories or the things that are more about like, well, how do I make changes in my life, which are important? Why are people failing there or not having more success? And a lot of it comes back to not a conversation for today, but just some of the principles we know about how you set those goals well. And that it's got to be specific and measurable and time oriented. And like people aren't doing that. They're instead saying things like, I want to get healthier this year, or I want to lose some weight, or I want to eat better.
Yeah.
And those are all intentions, which are great. And that's a great starting point of being able to put your finger on the places you want to see growth and improvement in your life. But you've got to drill down way more granular than that. That's one of the most common reasons why people are missing.
Yeah, what does that really look like in your life on a daily basis? And then what we know, why does some of the reasons they fail is it's all about here's what I want to do, but they don't change the environment.
Mm-hmm. Or the patterns.
They don't create a disruption in their way of thinking or being and doing. They don't change their structure of their environment, and their brain is so lazy and so efficient, it just keeps painting the same picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, hey, here's what I want to do differently, but there's no thought of one, what that really means, what it looks like, as you're talking about, or three, understanding of the impact our environment or the people we put in our environment, how they influence us and impact us.
Yeah. And that's a great point too, because it also connects to why people fail so often is setting a goal or a resolution for the year is almost always a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because your environment is already such that it needs all these changes. It's much better to think about whether it be even as small as 30 days, but up to 90 days. Like think about the quarter and think about changing it in a more subtle way, less noticeable, further distance on the pendulum, however you want to think about this. Don't think about where you want to end up. You got to think about like, okay, this first phase, this first quarter, whatever it might be, how do I begin to tip the scales like you're talking about? I got to get going.
Yeah, I got to get going, and I got to create some kind of disruption in the environment. But I think I like the long term to set a little bit of hope, but it's got to come back to the very concrete and tactical, because the research, one study we have here says that only 6 to 9% of individuals stick with for a year, like over the long term. And so if I don't create a game plan within 30 days of what I'm going to do differently, and I understand the small steps along the way, again, resolution, once I've already failed and I've fallen so far behind, what do we tend to tell ourselves? Well, it's not worth it. There's no way I can keep doing it, so I just give up.
Yeah. Let's go back to that stat for a moment. And I don't want to just like cherry pick one stat and then get all philosophical about America and stuff, but 6 to 9%.
Yeah.
Stick with it over the long term. And I don't know this data on other countries. It might be just like this. And it's just human nature, but
we can pick on Americans since we are Americans.
Those are really small numbers, right? So again, like overwhelmingly people aren't doing this. Those that are doing it, an extremely small segment is sticking with it.
Yeah.
It's discouraging.
Very discouraging. And I think that's why I want, like, if people know that stat, what's the common interpretation? Well, it's really hard. It's really challenging.
Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mess with it. And that's a whole nother interesting thought of questioning too, is like, what is it about the human and who is that individual who, when he or she hears that, thinks like, oh, I'm about to go be that guy.
Yeah.
Like what do those people seem to have? Or what the woman who thinks like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to be the one who I'm going to be in the 6 to 9%. Like those are interesting thoughts also.
Yeah, and I think kind of what finally motivates change. Prochaska talked about those stages of change. Well, a lot of maybe somewhat the resolutions we have are things other people have told us we need to change.
Yeah, it wasn't your choice.
Yeah, and so we haven't taken ownership of that, and so it's hard to stick through it because I haven't seen the need to really change my life yet. It's impacting other people, but we say all the time, it's so hard to quit doing what's quote unquote worked for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a clear takeaway there, just to mention, is if you want to be in that really small part of the population who sticks with this, and I know this is true as you get older, I can certainly attest to this, you've got to make some notable changes, not just in your habits, but like something about your life has got to be really different. You can't just continue to like run the same exact schedule and say yes to the same number of things. Like you'll just stick with it. You'll come back to the mean. Like it won't work.
And so let's prove that. Here's one study you found that said most people are optimistic. In fact, 80% of people feel that they can achieve their goals.
Yeah, that's a good stat.
So
too.
only 6% really are, but 80% like, I got this.
Yep.
Like I can do this. And so
that's a gap. Wow.
And so hope is essential. You can't live in a world without hope, but it's a terrible strategy. It goes back to, well, what's the game plan? What can I start doing differently? And you know me well. Like I'm a big dreamer, right? But what's the old saying? Vision without action is still just a dream. Action without vision is a nightmare. How do you bring it to the tactical? And how do you give yourself permission to recognize progress, not perfection?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a huge part of this, and we've talked about this plenty on the Growth Project in the past, accountability is a huge area here. And if you're the main or perhaps the only person who's going to know about what you said you were going to do, that is a recipe for failure. Huge recipe for failure. And there's tons of examples of this. I mean, one that I know we've mentioned in at least a prior episode or so is like take the everybody's familiar with this example, Alcoholics Anonymous, which over time for many people has been a really effective mechanism to create long-term sobriety. There is nothing even remotely complex about the model of why that works. Yeah. It's based upon two very simple things. If you tell the truth and have accountability, your likelihood of maintaining long-term sobriety exponentially increases.
I would add one more to it, right? That we're looking at 30, 60, 90 days.
In the early phases, yeah, true.
Yeah, because sometimes when I was working with people, and I remember vividly a young person I was working with who had a significant alcohol problem in college, and their mindset was, well, I'll be able to have a beer when I'm 40.
Yeah, that stuff.
And so that long-term thought was like, I'll never drink again is so overwhelming.
It's unnecessary too.
That people give up on that. But so, okay, let's just do something for a day.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the chips are, but I know you're getting 30 days. And so I love what you said is you got to be able to tell the truth. You got to be honest, and you got to have somebody that will hear that truth without judgment.
Yeah. But if I know that I am going to show up at this place, and when I show up, people are going to ask me if I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm going to vow to tell the truth, man, I got a shot.
Yeah.
I got a chance. And it's a similar thing here. Like if you will just involve other people in what you say you want to do, and you commit to tell the truth, you got a shot.
So this may be another podcast topic for another day, because I would love for us to break down what makes that so difficult for someone to be vulnerable. I mean, let's be honest. How many places in your life do you feel where you can really show up and be completely vulnerable, completely human, and share your innermost thoughts, share your failures, share your weaknesses, share your struggles without criticism, without condemnation, without judgment, without guilt, without shame?
Yeah.
There are very few places, and I think that's part of the model that is so powerful at Alcoholics Anonymous is people here understand me and they have empathy, and they love me enough and care about me enough to keep encouraging me. They don't give up.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this too gets back to like degree of desire. Like desire is not a binary construct of either you want it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes with that population of people who are struggling with addiction, they really want it. Like some people really, really want to figure this out. And so their desire, if you want to put this on a continuum, is really, really high. And when it comes to some of these things here, maybe desire isn't always high necessarily. Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of obligatory of, oh yeah, that's what you do at the end of the year. You kind of set some goals and all this, and the desire's low.
And so how do we create that desire without using that same example, the significant consequences that most people go into AA have experienced? I mean, that's the hard part.
Yep.
That's the challenge.
Well, and let me make one last point on that, in that there's a desire, I think, tends to be I don't remember if it's the mediating or the moderating variable that really brings about change. There's an interesting example. We just had this recently. I was at football practice probably 2 weeks ago, and there was a situation I was watching where one of our players did something wrong and got coached up really hard, and he kind of pouted about it. And it was a great line. One of our coaches just said to him pretty sternly, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to be great." and that there's a lot of lessons in that right there.
Yeah.
Of like, it's not hard to casually make statements like, "I want to be the best," or "I want to be great," or "I want to do this." Like anybody can do that. That's extremely low hanging fruit. What is your desire like in moments like that where it's like, hey, I've got to be like, I'm kind of embarrassed right now, and someone's coaching me hard. It's like, if my desire is truly great, if I mean what I say, I'm going to be more likely to really handle this well.
Yeah, and I think that difference, that's a great example of a reaction versus a response. And what we know to be true, if you can really clarify what you really want, if I really want to be great, then you can really articulate what are you willing to give up to get it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's get back on track here for a little bit. And again, I don't want people to think like, wow, these guys sure are negative about the resolution stuff, but we're just trying to give you the information here. January is not a good month when it comes to people making it out on this. So like, what does the research say on the drop-off rates?
So after January, about 8% last about a month after this. And then again, back to that long-term stat, Columbia University, some more research suggests only 25% make it past 30 days. Mm. And then back to that 6 to 10% very rarely accomplish them.
Yeah.
And so again, resolution, black or white, as soon as you fail once, or you haven't, as you said, invited other people in, or you haven't operationalized the goal, you just have this big dream of, I want to get healthier, I want to be strong, or I want to be fit, or I want to do this, and I don't make those changes. As soon as some more evidence shows up, like this is going to be really hard, this is going to be really difficult, the brain wants to say, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
And you just kind of give up on it.
Mm-hmm. The other thing this does, as you look at those numbers, is it kind of actually takes us back to where we started talking about last week's episode of reflection. The deeper you dig in the reflection phase, the more powerful, compelling, and convicted you tend to be in your assessments and reflections, which then operate as like rocket fuel in a sense to then go do the heavy lifting. And then I think the converse is true as well. If you just go through the motions on the reflection phase and you lack the depth there, right? If you swim in the shallow end, you're less likely to do the work.
Yeah.
Because the things that you have surfaced are they're not as deep, they're not as meaningful, there's less purpose in them.
Yeah, they're probably more easily influenced by society and how you think you should be in terms of, and less about what you truly believe and who you're really trying to become.
So you got to do the hard work in both phases and just recognize the way you're setting yourself up for phase 2 by how you go about phase 1.
Again, from a position of strength, we say a lot, shame and guilt are terrible motivators. So the reflection is, hey, giving yourself permission to be human, evaluate, don't criticize. That criticism sets limits on your willingness to grow. And as you look through that reflection, it's not about what you should or should not have done. It's, okay, what did last year really teach me about myself?
Yeah. So let's kind of take it in this direction here a little bit too, of let's try to establish some not just some categories, but some steps. And I think we've done the category thing is if you're at home and you're listening to this right now and you're thinking about, well, okay, what does this mean to me? Where do I get started in thinking about whether they're resolutions or goals? We've already established self is a perfectly fine category. Like you need to set some things related to yourself, certainly others, whether that's family, whatever it is, like what type of other type of category do you want to be sure you're touching down in? What else would we put on the
professional? Like self is like the internal, the wellness wheel when I think about yourself, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, relational, behavioral. And I think professional is, hey, what are you trying to pursue? I mean, that's what we talk about at AMPLOS. How can you be better as a person and pursue better in your life, whatever those goals are? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you trying to gain knowledge? How are you trying to improve? That can be financial as well. What's a goal you have for your finances this year?
Mm-hmm. Tons of that's good and fine. Yeah. So you want to think in terms of your categories. And then as you think about a sequence of like, these are not things that you just live in your head. You need to write these down.
Yes.
If you're more of if you don't write, if you're more of like your iPad or your phone, or your computer, that's fine. You need to type these things out, but there needs to be a real work component to that. And then you need to get into, like, you need to sit down with someone and walk somebody through this. And it could be that you walk different people through different categories. Don't have to do that, but you might want to just share certain things with certain people. There's flexibility there, but you got to go from the work phase to the visibility phase where you let people in, and you got to get to work.
Yeah, and I think who you let in is and how many people you let in. The research suggests the more people you tell, the less likely you are to accomplish the goal. So this isn't about putting this on social media and Instagram on New Year's Day this is the year. Like this is, and then and so it's not about proclaiming to the world what you're going to accomplish. It's an intimate, again, back to somebody that trusts you, loves you, encourages you without judgment, that nudges you in the right direction. That's part of that process as well.
Yeah, there's that great graphic. Someone showed it to me yesterday, actually. You've probably seen it. It has like all these, it's like 2019, 2021, 22, 20, and next to each year it says practice. And then it says for this year, it says I'm locking in. And it's like, okay.
This is my year.
Yeah.
This is my year.
Those other years were locked in years too, but then they became practice years. It's like, this is it. This is the year. All right. So I know we need to kind of move toward our finish here in a minute, but the really kind of hopefully the spirit that you're taking away from this conversation is, how do I build on my reflection work in the best way possible to increase the likelihood this sticks? And it absolutely can. Go back to what we shared here in the data. If 6 to 9% of people are sticking with this, that can be you, but not without the right plan.
Yeah, and I think that reflection, it's so easy to think about my life and how many changes I really need to make. And one of the reasons we don't accomplish the goals, we set too many. And
Way too many.
Yeah, so narrow the focus, narrow the game plan of how you measure the progress. 30 days, here's where I want to be. And as you said earlier, here are the things I'm going to do. And then give yourself permission to be human. It's progress, not perfection. Progress is one of my favorite words. How do you recognize progress? And how do you not give up with that first level of setback or first adversity when you got to go on the road for 5 days, or you do these things and your environment gets disrupted? That's what we see. Is it's easy when you're at home for 3 days to go to the gym and work out because you got all day to do it. How do you change the schedule and environment so you stay with that, whatever that goal may be, for a longer period of time?
So you just said one thing that did trigger one other thing I want to mention, and that is January is not the only time of year, or December, where you can actually set goals and things like that. And so I think one of the reasons people, they go too big on this, they have too many, is like, oh, here's my one shot. Yeah. Not your one shot. It's perfectly acceptable and probably better actually have a shorter list of things. And then as the year goes on, you can do what you want to do here. You can add,
evaluate, and reset. Like if I set a goal in January that I'm going to work out however many times per week, and I don't accomplish it the second week, okay, adjust.
Yeah,
1's better than 0. 2, and so that's part of the problem with the resolution is, as soon as I get information and feedback, I'm not going to keep this up. We don't ever reset the goal.
Yeah. That's Quitter's Day, as January.
Quitter's Day.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's this is always a healthy reflection in our own life. And I think that's what we enjoy about the podcast. That's what we enjoy about the work, is you really try to help others and encourage others. It makes you look in the mirror and say, okay, well, what do I do well, and where do I struggle, and where do I want to focus? And so if you're in that category, which the research suggests you are, use that reflection to guide you, to inform your decision-making, and think deeply about, I love what you said, Drew, is how can you create the environment differently? What does it really look like? How do you put this into practice?
Yeah, because if you continue to run the same blueprint, this is not a profound statement, you will get the same things. Yeah. And so you got to figure out what in the blueprint needs to change.
2026 will be another year of practice.
Yeah. No. We're locking in.
Another year.
We're locking in. All right. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We hope that the coming year is just great on many levels, meaningful in so many ways. So we're looking forward to being a part of that with you here at the Growth Project.
Yeah, we're so grateful to be a partner in the process of growth. And so we thank you for listening, subscribing, like us, whatever you're supposed to be doing really helps us get the word out. Give us some feedback about what's working, what's not working. Hopefully you're liking the worksheets we're providing to help guide your discovery and guide your growth. And we do believe that 2026, with the rest of our life, that the best is yet to come. Thank you.